And the fact that he did, yeah, that was cool. So I love that. That was yeah. Obviously, I'm coming late to the party. That's what this is. That's what this is all about. Is
That's
me
what, yeah,
actually. It's old news to everyone else except for me.
it's why
So
we're doing this.
so with that, we'll actually begin this first episode, or this third episode of Who Virgin. Welcome. I am the Who Virgin, Andy Wilson. With me, as always, is my Obi-Wan, Mark De Leon. Welcome.
Hey,
And let's start by talking about non-Who stuff because I'm sure Doctor Who fans love talking about
non
non-Doctor Who things. Um, Mark, you mentioned last week you don't normally get out to a lot of movies, but you actually went and saw both of my favorite movies of the year so far.
I went movie crazy this week. So we went to the theater to see two movies, and then I saw two other movies that I've been wanting to see for a while that I finally got my hands on. So we took Julia to see Cinderella, and then we went to go see Kingsman, and then during the week I saw Saint Vincent and Fury, and
Oh,
yeah, and then
nice.
today I'm gonna watch Birdman. Been wanting to watch that one for a while as well. So I'm starting to, I'm like way after the Oscars. I'm finally putting the pieces together to see exactly who I would side with as to who should have won, best actor, best actress, and all that other stuff.
So did I oversell Cinderella and Kingsman?
Not Kingsman. Holy hell. I love Kingsman. I'm just blurting out Oxfords, not bros, everywhere just to see if maybe I get a phone call or somebody comes visits me because I so want to be a Kingsman. They just kick so much ass. This movie came out of nowhere, for me anyway, came out of nowhere. I may have read something about it at some point, but it didn't register with me that it was connected to anything at all. And I've been reading a lot about how people are lauding it, and especially from you. And I went in thinking, I hope this movie is at least, good. Uh, Man, no way. It's that is the best movie I've seen all year so far.
Yeah, I was marginally familiar with the source material. Like I knew that the comic book had come out. I glanced at it in the store one time, kind of flipped through it, and was like, "Oh, that's interesting," but never really wanted to really, really get into it. And now I'm glad because the comic has almost nothing to do. Well, it doesn't have almost nothing to do with the actual movie, but the movie is so much better. They really took the meat of what was cool about the comic and
Right,
made a great film out of it. And on top of that, I think they made a great love letter to all of the spy genre
right.
above and beyond that. I mean, it just bled cool effortlessly the way that in like Flint and old Bond movies and
Right,
even
and
Austin
even
Powers really
yeah,
got it.
exactly. Even a little bit of Austin Powers.
Yeah,
That's what I really liked about it. I saw a little bit of it in like Flint. I definitely saw the Bond influence and the humor of the Austin Powers. It all works so well together. At first I didn't know what to make of Sam Jackson, especially with that list that he adopts for his character. I didn't know what to make of it, but God, it all just worked out so perfectly. It just did. His henchwoman, perfect.
great. See, and that's another great example of taking a character who was in the comics, he was a black guy and traded it in for a woman. You know, you never would have known that character was gender swapped.
Huh.
But it just worked, and it was that's really cool. I'm really glad. So and the same with Samuel L. Jackson's character. Like it's a black guy. That's great. It's awesome to see Samuel L. Jackson getting to do something different and interesting that is also fits perfectly with a lot of what he's done in the past. So
And and the movie actually brings up a good point. This world is overpopulated, and it's getting worse. And what solution does anybody have? Has anybody even spoken about a solution? I mean, we crucified China for their two-child rule, or is it one child now, or I don't know what it is now.
One child.
But at least they're approaching it. I mean, ethically or unethically, that's a whole discussion for another day. But at least they know it's an issue and they have to do something about it. Nobody else has said anything, and it is an issue. So yeah, the movie is funny, and there's a lot of violence, and the solution is insane. But it is an issue. It's something that we all should be talking about. So that's another thing I liked about it. It is grounded in some kind of seriousness. It's not just, blood and guts and funny. Although the blood and guts, man, the church scene with Freebird, best use of Freebird ever. Fell in love with that scene. It's just crazy good.
It was great, and the rainbow exploding heads. That was my favorite.
Again.
But I think about things like overpopulation, and I'm like, population isn't the problem. The problem is the way that we do things, and us being, really greedy people, and I don't mean us. I mean like humanity in general. If we moved to a sustainable form of growth using non-fossil fuel related energy, we could sustain the number of people on this planet, no problem. If we changed our agriculture away from being really intensely getting our protein sources from animals and looked at sustainable long-term growth of a more plant-based diet, like I'm not saying go completely vegetarian, go completely vegan, but let's be reasonable and everyone start adopting, meatless Mondays and things like that. We can. I think we can.
Cows are delicious.
Cows are delicious.
God, cows are so great.
Which is why I'm not saying like everyone should go vegetarian or vegan, because I certainly would never want to do that. But
no, murder the cows. But
we can move away from factory farming type deals to a sustainable form of agriculture that.
Totally agree. But Earth still has a finite number of resources. And I don't know. I mean, if you do the math, I don't know how much more we can continue sustaining. Certainly not at the pace that we're at, and for all the issues you spoke about. But let's say we adopt a more sustainable approach. What's the population now? How many gazillion people do we have?
7 billion.
7 billion. Okay, double that. I mean, y'all Mormons aren't known for restraint.
Hey, that's why I only have 2 kids. I've only got
you guys
2.
are spreading out everywhere, man.
I know. So that's not. But that's not me. That's why I'm practicing sustainability within my own home. So yes, Mormon, but also I work for an environmental group, so I know what's going on.
What you preach.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the world has too many Duggars and not enough Wilsons. Where people are just having like a half a billion, and it's not necessary anymore. I mean, I come from, my immediate family's not large, but my father's side, my mother's side, like Jesus. On my mom's side, there's 14. Wow. And on my dad's side is small by comparison. There's a total of 6 of them. But my mom's side was insane. And people around where I lived, where I was raised, that was the norm. 12, 13 siblings.
Yeah.
But we don't need that anymore. And
I think
people are still doing it.
I think it's more an idiocracy moment. It's, people like you and me are having like 1, 2 kids, and then the idiots of the world are having large families. So I know some of y'all out there have big families and are not idiots. I'm not talking about you, but
y'all are cool.
By and large, I'm just saying. I mean, this is terrible, and this would actually never happen. But I think we need to really look into a form of simple reversible male sterilization, and then just practice it give it to everybody at age 13.
Yeah, well, put it in pill form. I'll take it. But what I want to avoid is a future where there is a President Mountain Dew Camacho, and we're irrigating everything with electrolytes.
But it's got what plants crave.
Yeah, that's what I want to avoid. And
Yeah.
yeah, but
I,
okay. So now Cinderella. Um,
Cinderella. Back to talking about things for families, like
yeah,
family
I
play.
know. That was an awesome segue, by the way. Cinderella, really liked it. My daughter loved it. Here's the thing with me though. Um, it didn't do with me what Maleficent did. I loved Maleficent because there was a whole new, fresh spin on the whole Sleeping Beauty story. We saw another side. It went off on another tangent. We actually felt something for Maleficent. Cinderella is pretty much by the book. It's pretty much went. If you've seen the cartoon version, you've seen this new Cinderella movie. And not to say that's bad, because it wasn't. I think visually it was beautiful, and there was, the theme about compassion, forgiveness, and kindness, which is great for not only little girls but for all children. They have to learn, how to develop that. But my biggest complaint is that there wasn't anything new. It wasn't fresh. So while it was good, it was a good movie, and visually it was fantastic. It just didn't do anything for me in terms of something new coming at me.
Hmm. And see, whereas I saw all of that extra texture really spackled over many of the problems that I had with the original, especially as I said last week, a lot of the sexism and gender roles and things like that. And I thought that the internal logic of why the prince is actually going to throw a ball for the entire kingdom, why Cinderella wants to go there, and have her not just be, oh, I'm a flibbertigibbet and I want to go to a ball and meet the prince. I felt like there was a lot there that went to their motivations, and it made it all seem a lot more, at least palatable or interesting. And so
Yeah,
I like that.
I get what you're saying, and I did like where they changed it up, where they meet and they don't know who one another are, right? Or their backgrounds. She
Yeah.
doesn't know he's a prince. He doesn't know her situation. So it's, ostensibly it's two people who meet without anything else getting involved, just man, woman, right? Girl, boy. They
Hmm.
fall in love. And I guess that's the lesson about, don't worry where people come from. If you make a connection, that should be good enough. That's great, but they still fall in love. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not a matter of weeks or months. It's a matter of minutes and hours, and then
Yeah.
you fall in love. Whereas Frozen, if I can use that as an example, Queen Elsa is like, "What do you mean you guys are in love? What do you mean you want to get married? You just met each other. You guys are crazy."
I
So
know.
that was a message to the little girl saying, "Don't do this crap. Don't fall in love at first sight. It's dumb to do this."
Hmm.
Whereas Cinderella went right back to saying, "Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead, fall in love with the first guy you see." I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I agree, and so a lot of the interesting discussions I had with people about this is of whether it's as explicitly feminist and girl powery as Maleficent uh, or Frozen. I'm like, no, it's a different kind. It's better than the original, in the same way that I suspect that the new Dumbo is going to be better on racial issues,
Rachel, we're gonna
and
go with Rachel.
we're
We're
not
talking
gonna
about the
have,
crows, right?
yeah, we're not gonna have the crows probably, or they're going to be not as awfully stereotypical, and we're probably not going to have the.
If
I
it's
hope
three rappers,
it'll.
I'm walking out. Yeah,
Well, if
that's
it's
so.
three black people playing the Black Crows, then that's,
Yeah,
or maybe if we have the band the Black Crows playing the Black Crows, then
I'm
we
not.
can. No, I'm just kidding. So,
Well,
oh,
here's the thing about the feminist argument, and I would counter you by saying mom is still trying to set up both daughters with a man
yep,
because only men can take care of them.
yep.
And it was a man that saved Cinderella at the end.
Yeah, now
I,
that is the problem, but I think that it, the I think the critique inherent in that is that, you know these were the bad people. It was the bad people who were really materialist and who were chasing the
okay.
prince and who wanted a woman's place is just to be to be there with the man. And yeah, Cinderella did need a man to rescue her, and it's also troubling that she's in a very abusive situation, and she keeps putting herself back in
In
that
it.
situation, and that's not good. That isn't something we should be teaching. But the entire story is incumbent upon there being a fair maiden who's willing to put up with the abuse of her stepmother and stepsisters. So it's like, yeah, it's not teaching a good thing, but it's unfortunately part of the story.
Honestly, it's a hard story to spin with modern values.
Yeah, that's true.
It really is, and I'll probably get a fair amount of your hatred for saying this, but Ever After probably did a better job in terms of putting a more feminist view on things. Um,
Yeah,
but
probably.
like I said, it's not to take away from the visual aspect of the movie. I thought visually it was great, and Helena Bonham Carter as the godmother was fantastic. Kate Blanchett was, oh God, she can be so evil, can't she?
She was
She does
great.
evil so well. And I love seeing some of the Game of Thrones character actors in there, and one of the Borgias, a show that I enjoyed. So all of that worked for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, if I had to judge a movie for what it is, it was good, but it didn't do anything for me in terms of something new.
Yeah. Here's how I feel though, is that the more that I see what Cinderella's competition is with other children's films, the more that I really enjoy it. And to wit, I I saw yesterday the movie Home, which is coming out on Friday, starring Jim Parsons from Big Bang Theory and Rihanna from Rihanna and
From
pop music.
from
and and her mom is played by J Lo, which is funny. It's like,
Oh wow.
all right. So I just really disliked this film. I like Jim Parsons in Big Bang Theory. I could sit down and watch 4 episodes of Big Bang Theory and probably be okay with Jim Parsons, but he really started grating on me after 45 minutes to an hour of this movie. I don't know what it was about the performance. Maybe it was overly cutesy. Maybe it was just the way that he spoke. It didn't work for me.
What
And
about the story? I mean, was there anything to it?
yeah, so the story's kind of interesting. Aliens come to Earth and they're fleeing a group of people called the Gork, who are really scary aliens, and they're tiny, squishy aliens. And so they're fleeing from the Gork, and the Gork destroyed their planet, so they're looking for a new one. And they find Earth, and they're going to recolonize it. And so they take all the humans and they put them in Australia in little pre-planned suburban communities, which is interesting. So Rihanna gets left behind in New York, and then at the same time, our main character O, who and his name is O because every time anyone meets him, they'll go oh, because they're sick of him. So that's the way they start off the story. So he's meant to be annoying and out of context, and he sends out an invite to a housewarming party at his place, and accidentally sends it to the entire galaxy, not just to his friends, and that includes the Gork. So they have to find a way to turn off the signal before it gets to the evil aliens
Mhm.
who will come and invade. And then he's on the run as public enemy number one because he alerted the evil aliens to. Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Okay, so Is it? And I can't believe I'm going to compare him to this character because I really don't have a problem with this character for the time he spends on this movie I'm about to bring up. But is it like 2 hours of Jar Jar Binks?
Um, Jar Jar is the closest that I can come to for a character that's going to be annoying, but he isn't quite so far as Jar Jar Binks. His speech is affected and different, and they speak differently, but
But it's still the whole "I'm such a klutz and I cause all these things to happen" type of deal.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is a little
I
bit
thought
like
so.
that. It
I
is a
thought so.
little bit like that. So it's nowhere. It, and let me say this: like there have been Jar Jar centric episodes of the Clone Wars cartoon show that I absolutely loved, and where I didn't think Jar Jar was annoying at all. But if I had to watch all of the parts with Jar Jar in the Phantom Menace over and over again on repeat for an hour and a half, that would be about the level of annoyance that I'd have here.
That
Oh,
very
except for that final battle scene, because I love that battle scene. That's
that,
great.
that very well may be what Black Ops CIA does to terrorists. Just cut up all the Jar Jar parts. And,
Oh
yeah,
wow.
by the 10th Misa, they want to kill themselves.
Oh
I have
wow.
no problem with Jar Jar. Honestly, I don't. I love the Phantom Menace. I'm a big Star Wars fan, both trilogies, and I'm unapologetic about it. But I do see how he can be annoying, and I think we got just enough of him. I don't. I think any more, and it would have annoyed me too. But when I saw all the commercials, the trailers for Home, that's immediately what I thought. And I'm like, ah, it's gonna be an hour and a half to 2 hours of this dude just being clumsy and trying to be funny with all these silly puns. And I don't want to do that. I'm
It,
already thinking of creative excuses to give Julia to not take her to see this.
it's especially as much as theater tickets cost these days.
I know,
It's
man.
just not worth it. And so Cinderella, yes. Home, no. Wait for Redbox or uh, an Amazon digital rental or something for Home. It's fine, and there's probably a certain audience for it, but it's definitely not me. And my kids had an okay time with it, but they're not like. I also then took them to go see Transformers the movie, the
Uh,
1986 animated one, yesterday afternoon at the Alamo Draft House,
yeah.
and they were like head over heels for that.
You can't beat
So,
explosions, man. Explosions are
or
the best.
and now Jackson's bothering me because we can't watch Transformers on Netflix anymore. It's like it's gone. I can't watch it. And he really wants to. So it's like no, Optimus Prime isn't dead. It's okay. We can go back and watch them sometime.
Daddy
But
needs to buy the DVDs or
I
maybe
know,
visit a torrent or two.
I know. I think that's
Not that
what
we
we're gonna
condone
have to
such
do.
things.
No, we definitely do not condone torrenting the entirety of Transformers, although I'm sure that could be done. It's too bad. I wish it were back on Netflix because we would have liked to have watched some of those Dinobot episodes and the
It'll come
Aerial
back
Bots
eventually.
episodes. They will come back,
Yeah.
so that's okay. We'll just be patient. And I had to explain to him about how when I was his age, we had to wake up early on Saturday morning to
Mhm.
watch
To
cartoons,
watch
and
it.
that was that was the only time we got to watch Transformers all week.
You know what you should tell him? Tell him, gather around, I got tales to tell you about this thing called the GoBots that we had to watch in between episodes of Transformers just to get our fix. You remember the GoBots?
GoBots, of
Oh,
course I remembered GoBots.
horrible.
Leader
Even as a
One,
kid, I knew I was getting ripped off.
yeah. Psykill. I'm who was the little red scooter guy? Was his name Scooter? Was the
I don't
GoBot
even recall. I don't even remember
Scooter's name?
him.
Yeah, I
It's,
don't I
it's,
don't
it's been that long.
Yeah, it was terrible and not Transformers.
Yeah,
The
but I remember watching because I was like, ugh, I guess.
it,
Like,
it
maybe
was
give me this.
it was great though because I spent all afternoon like quoting Optimus Prime to the kids like One shall stand, one shall fall. Megatron must be stopped, no matter the cost.
Yeah, it's
You,
not a bad Peter Cullen.
you got the power. Oh man, there's nothing like seeing that projected in 35 millimeter on a big screen. It's not that it's really that amazing, but it's like, wow.
It is. But you know what, man? I gotta call out the Alamo Draft House because they ain't doing crap here in San Antonio. To be
Boo.
honest, man, we should have a Transformer night.
I couldn't figure out if this was part of their ongoing in memoriam to Leonard Nimoy or the beginning of their celebration of Orson Welles. Maybe bits of both.
Yeah, but you guys get all the cool stuff.
We do.
We're
It's
getting a
unfortunate.
Rihanna special, stupid thing. Ugh,
Oh no.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
we
none too
get.
happy about this.
I'm I am and to be more jealous of Alamo Drafthouse. My mom is moving here to Austin, and she's building a home, and they just announced this week that they're going to be building a new draft house like a mile from where she's.
Oh, nice.
I know, so we're super excited. It's right next to the Children's Museum, and
God,
it's
that's
like, well,
perfect.
uh, we know what we're going to be doing. It's like we're going to go drop off the kids at Grandma's house and go see a movie. A lot of nights coming
That's
up
cool.
as soon as she gets here and as soon as it's built. Um,
Lucky you.
I know, and maybe they'll spread out the South by Southwest showings, and they'll have some of them out there too. Who knows? We'll see. This was South by Southwest week in Austin, and a little bit of last weekend. So this was the first year in like 5 years that I've skipped South by Southwest. I didn't go to a single movie, didn't go to a single show, didn't go to a single panel. It felt strangely good.
I've never done South by Southwest. I don't do too well in crowds. It just I become irritable and I want to punch everybody in the face, and
Yeah.
I just people in general just it's kind of weird because I can go to concerts and really enjoy myself and be in it, but for festivals or parades or anything like that, I can't do it. It just
The final straw that convinced me I was right, though, was the last 3 years. Marvel has done a panel at South by
oh yeah,
Southwest
yes
Interactive,
it is.
and they did not do one this year. They did not come this year.
It's a
And
big
as
hit or
soon as I
miss.
figured that out, I'm just like, you know what? I'm not doing this. Last year they really blew my socks off. They had Clark Gregg Skype in, and and he took questions from the audience. That was
Ah,
a lot of fun.
nice.
And they were talking about Agents of Shield, and they showed us a little bit of Captain America: Winter Soldier, and it was great. So, and this year, nothing. So, that's the way it goes, and I'm glad that I skipped South by Southwest. But speaking of Agents of Shield and Clark Gregg, let's talk some TV.
Yeah,
Um,
I
um,
called it.
you called it. Tell us what you called.
Drum roll. Separate Shield is going on, and Bobby and Mac. I never thought they were Hydra or Leviathan, if Leviathan even still is a thing. I had this strong hunch that they were going to set up a separate Shield, and it hasn't been confirmed or anything like even brought up, but I think they're going to be working with General Talbot. And I think the way it's going to work out is they're going to be a more purely militant wing, whereas Coulson and his crew are going to be dealing with the superhuman elements of Shield, and I think we're going to see that divide. And to me, that spells out the seedlings of Civil War, where they start separating. They don't want anything to do with the superhuman. They're going to start talking about how superhuman needs to be contained, which Mac has already been saying about Daisy. She should be contained. She
Yeah.
should be controlled. So I think these are the tiny little seedlings that are going to lead to directly to Civil War. And And we got Edward James Olmos, which I think is going to be the head of New Shield. I don't, what are we going to call it? Shield Do or Shield Redo? Or
The real Shield. They call
how
themselves the
about
real Shield.
Battlestar Shield?
Battlestar Shield. Yeah, no, that excited me so much because I knew Adama, or almost, was going to be on the show, but it hadn't been revealed who he was going to be until this
Right.
week, and then they tweeted that picture, and that's just amazing to me. You might be right that they are going to be working with Talbot. I'm still putting my money on Stark Industries' involvement as well, and maybe both of them together. Who knows?
Right.
And again, the seedlings of the Civil War, where it's going to be the new Shield is going to be purely not only military, but like military industrial complex with Stark Industries and Stark Tech and other elements in there. And then Coulson is free to be on the side of Captain America and the insurgents, which
Right.
I think would be really interesting.
Yeah, maybe a Pentagon versus CIA type of deal. You know,
Hmm.
one's purely clandestine. We never know what they're doing. One's a little more open and a little
Hmm.
more prone to using force. That's the way I'm seeing it. I mean, we're going to be in for some pretty good show coming up next week and every week after. I can't wait to see Adama, see what he does. At first, I thought he was going to be the heavy for a few episodes,
Hmm.
but I'm sort of glad that he won't be. I mean, nothing's been confirmed, but we can extrapolate that he's not going to be the heavy, that he's going to be the head of New Shield, and that's all sorts of awesome if it means we have him for an extended period of time.
Well, and it's great because Marvel has always had these kind of heroic uh, frenemies out there, like Thunderbolt Ross and the character that Talbot, who's been on here already. They're not bad guys. They're just guys doing their job, and they're doing it from a certain point of view. But they're a little bit obsessive, and they're maybe a little bit off. So
Right.
I think that fits really well in there. It'll be interesting to see if almost uh, fits into that mold or if he breaks other ground. So yeah, I don't think he'll be a bad guy, the same way that Hydra is a bad guy. But um, we'll see.
We'll see
So
how it turns out.
yeah, I'm really excited the opportunities that this opens up, and again, what it's going to be on the Civil War. Oh, and one thing as I've been thinking about the Civil War, I'm thinking more and more that it's not going to be about secret identities, because if you think about it in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the TV universe, very few people actually have secret identities. I mean, everybody is out there, everybody's known. Thor is Thor, Cap is Steve Rogers, Tony Stark is Iron Man, and he's been out
Right.
since day one. So, to introduce Spider-Man in Civil War and have it suddenly be, oh, we've known the guy has been in the franchise for 15 minutes, and now it's a big deal that he's giving up his secret identity. It feels like it's not an earned issue, or it's
You're
not
right.
an earned moment. So I think it's going to be more about control
Or
and
putting your
direct
arms down.
control, them being in some sort of a command structure, which is what was more seemed to be like more of the crux of the Civil War argument, was that
Right.
the U.S. federal government wanted control over the superheroes, not just that they wanted their identities out there. That
It,
that
it,
was a side issue.
it very well may be a take up arms for us or lay your arms down type of deal.
Yep, exactly.
And I can definitely see Cap saying, "Screw that." I'm like, no.
Yep.
Uh, Man, that's going to be so awesome. But we have to wait a whole year for that.
Yeah, but whatever it is, I think we're gonna get little bits and pieces of it, and it's gonna keep getting fed through the every week in the TV and doled out little bit by little bit in these movies. Um, the other really great thing I saw on TV this week is a new show called iZombie, which is also based on a comic book written by Chris Robertson, who was an Austin native and a great guy. He also used to write Superman for DC,
Mm-hmm.
and co-written and illustrated by Mike Allred, who used to do Dead Man and what did he do? X Force. He did one of the X books, and I can't remember what. It, I'm I'm blanking on which one, but he's great. Um, the show is a lot different from the comics. So anyone who's enjoying the show, I'm not going to say don't go out and buy the comics the way that I am with Kingsman, because it'll kind of spoil it. But if you go out and you read the comics, they're very different. The comics are very explicitly set in Portland. It's very gloomy. It's very Pacific Northwesty. Um, there's a lot more kind of depression and ennui going on in the comic book, and the show seems kind of upbeat and funny. The show is it's exactly what I would have expected from the creative team behind Veronica Mars, who are the ones producing this, if they'd taken iZombie and adapted it into a CW show. It is 100% that. It's snarky, it's funny, it's got a lot of action, um, and it's just generally a lot of fun. So here's the basic storyline. Um, medical student Oh, I almost said Gwen because that was her name in the comics. It's not Gwen. Her name is now Liv. Get it? She's a zombie and her name is Liv.
Live, yeah.
Eye roll, but
I'm
okay,
enjoying this already, Andy.
that's okay. Just look beyond that. Medical student Liv um, goes to a party and gets scratched by a zombie. Wakes up and she's undead, and she's okay, but if she doesn't eat brains, she's going to well, in the comics it's very explicit that if she doesn't eat brains, she's going to become a mindless a mindless walking zombie.
But
Um,
she can talk and reason and all that.
yeah, she's basically herself. She's just undead. So she's basically like impervious to bullets and things like that. She's super strong, uh, but basically, since her skin just went really pale and her hair went blonde, everyone just thinks she's gone all goth, and she's got these big circles under her eyes. So everyone just thinks she's like going through a phase and she's depressed and listening to Bauhaus or whatever, and that's the only thing wrong with her. But no, she's a zombie. Um, this hasn't been brought up in the show yet, but in the comics, if she didn't eat brains, then she would, she'd revert, and she knew that was those were the stakes. So in the comics, she gets a job as a gravedigger so that she'd have an ample supply of brains with her, and then she'd eat the brains. And when she did, she would actually take on their thoughts and feelings and memories and their persona a little bit, and then she'd go out and solve crimes, or sometimes it was even lower stakes. Like there's one where she ate the brain of someone, and the person felt really bad and felt like she had to apologize to her mom, and she went and created this closure for her, and it was really kind of tender and nice. So not not always the highest of stakes, but in this case, when she eats on the show, when she eats someone's brain, she sees flashbacks from the last few days of their life. They're kind of interesting visions, and she doesn't always know what they mean. But she works in a medical examiner's office, and she's using this knowledge to solve their murders. So her co-medical examiner knows that she's a zombie. No one else does, and so she's got to like keep that a secret. There's a detective who wants her to like be his partner, so kind of like um, kind of like Bones, or kind of like, I'm trying to think of. There's other shows where like the medical examiner like teams up with a cop, and it's kind of by the book in that sense, but it's not bad. It's actually quite
Sounds
fun.
a bit like Warm Bodies.
A little bit, a little bit.
Mhm.
There's a little bit of Warm Bodies in there. There's a little bit of True Calling. With I don't know if you remember that show with
Yep.
Eliza Dushku from a couple of years ago. Yeah, she was a medical examiner, and she'd touch bodies and find out about who
But yeah.
killed them, and yeah. Um, so it's not bad. I'm gonna keep watching. I'm mostly enjoying it. The pilot was fun. It looks like there's going to be another zombie who uh, can be a maybe I don't know if that he's going to be a romantic interest or a mentor or maybe a frenemy. We'll see.
Is
It
this
also
a
reminds me a little bit of Being Human,
is
which
this
is good.
another PlayStation deal, or is this
No,
on
no, no.
being broadcast on one of the networks?
This is on the CW
Oh, it's
Tuesday
on
night.
CW.
Yep,
Really? I
yep.
haven't even seen a single commercial about that. Maybe I'm just not paying attention.
Yeah. So it's on. It's also on Hulu right now, so you can go check it out. Tuesday nights on the CW, and I'm gonna really recommend people check this out because it's a good show. If if you liked Veronica Mars, if you like Supernatural, if you like zombies, if you liked True Calling, if you liked Bones, all of these things are this is right up your alley.
Cool. I might give it a shot.
Yep.
I still want to watch that Powers show though.
Oh, Powers. I have not watched the newest episode yet. I'll have to do that. So I ended up so this week I spent the first part of the week in beautiful scenic Columbus, Ohio. And that meant that Tuesday night on St. Patrick's Day I was out and I had an early morning flight and I was trying to figure out what to do. So I I figured out that hey, my alma mater BYU is in the NCAA tournament in Dayton, and that's only like an hour away. So I thought, hey, I can zoom over to Dayton and go pick up some basketball tickets. Um, I thought about that. Then I decided against that. It was just going to be too much hassle and too much chance for uh, what if my car broke down or something weird like that, and I didn't make it back for my flight. I definitely want to get home. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go find a sports bar somewhere and watch it and just watch the game. So I found this Irish pub with lots of TVs and had them turn it on. Um, and they just randomly happened to have that night live karaoke. And I don't know if you've ever done or seen live karaoke, but there's a live band, and then they put the lyrics up, and you can sing along with them.
That sounds awesome.
The
Never done
crazy, the craziest thing started happening during the game, and you can go back and follow me on Twitter at Citizen Andy, and go back to my tweets from the night of St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, and follow along as I'm live tweeting. Um, the craziest things started happening. Every time the karaoke was good, BYU would do well. Every time the karaoke was bad, Ole Miss would start pulling ahead, and they'd start catching up. And it as the night went on, the karaoke got worse. And about 5 minutes left in the game, some people came up and absolutely destroyed the B-52's Love Shack. And it was just awful. And it was at that point that Ole Miss finally pulled ahead, and there was just nothing that could bring it back. This awesome guy came up and tried to do "Let's Get It On" by Marvin Gaye after. It was awesome, but not enough for the
I
Cougars to
know.
pull it out, and they lost. So
How do you screw up the Love Shack? How does anybody screw that up?
I don't know. I think they might have been a little bit too drunk. Yeah, I'm like, this is the easiest. This is like the easiest and most classic karaoke song ever.
Why was
So
that? It should be easy.
exactly, exactly. So I'd been threatening the whole night to go up and do something, and so as I left, I went up and um, threw all of my angst into Weezer's "Say It Ain't So" and just killed it. So that was awesome. Anyone who ever has done karaoke with me knows I take it very seriously and have a. Well, I don't take it seriously, but I really rock the heck out of the songs that I do. So it's not
Yeah,
serious. It's not meant to be taken seriously any more than college basketball is.
I
So.
like to witness karaoke happening. I don't like being a part of it because I suck.
Well,
Done that a few times.
one of these times we'll have to have you up to Austin when we do karaoke awesomeness, and you can just witness, and
I'll
um,
witness. That's for
we'll
sure.
we'll
Yeah.
have yeah, and you can drink and have a good time. That's half the fun anyway. Is like watch your friends make idiots of themselves. So
Yes, it is. That's always
yeah,
fun.
that's the way you do it. Um, so that's it. I think the time has come for us to take a little break, and then we're going to come back with my great confession of Doctor Who.
Bring it
So,
on.
oh, okay. So, break right now, and on the other side, a confession. Cool. All right. Um, all right.
Yeah, if it's going to be one of those steam shower, awkward story confession things,
No, no, no,
prepare
no,
me
no.
now.
No, it's very simple. So, it's let me let me set the mood. Um, it is September of 2014, and I have gone back to uh, well, I won't call it my native home of Utah because it's not my native home, but I've gone back to Salt Lake City to attend Salt Lake Comic Con and had the most amazing weekend of the last several years. So, all my friends from Salt Lake Comic Con, all my friends from Big Shiny Robot, y'all rock. That was just an amazing weekend. It is Sunday afternoon, and I decide to go hang out at the home of or a couple of my fellow Big Shiny Robots, Sithbot Adam and his husband Eddie and their roommate Jeremiah, who is also a former writer for Big Shiny Robot. Love you, Jeremiah. Um, and as we are there and hanging out, we're just hanging out, doing nothing, talking. And Adam's like, "Oh, hey, let's watch the newest Doctor Who," and I'm like, "I'm not gonna bring up. Oh, I don't know
Right.
about Doctor Who. I don't know what's going on. I don't want. I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever. It's your guy's house, whatever." And so they turned it on, and this is actually one of the geneses of this podcast. Was I watched this episode, which was a Peter Capaldi episode, and someone can go back and check which one this was exactly, but um, from late September, and they're fighting the Daleks, and they actually go inside a sick Dalek,
Oh, yes,
um,
yes.
who has I don't remember exactly. He's like he's decided he doesn't want to exterminate anymore, or he wants to kill himself,
He's
or
done. Right.
yeah, it's like there's something like that going on, and I'm like, oh, this show's pretty cool. I like the production values. I like the actors. I like the feel of it. Um, Even just jumping into this, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I kind of, and I knew just as much as I talked about on last week's episode then as I do now, and so I kind of knew what was going on, and uh, I had a good time with it. So that was my first real introduction to Doctor Who. So I had that I had that experience, even though I didn't know what was going on, and I sat through most of it. playing Candy Crush and texting other people. That was basically it. That was my actual breaking of my Who virginhood right there. So
Here's the thing about the Peter Capaldi season, this new season, is that if you're not well versed of the Doctor Who world, if you're not a Whovian, a lot of it will go over your head. Because I think that this is the first regeneration where they just move on. There isn't much exposition about what went on before, not really. And I've been finding this past season to be a lot quicker in terms of narrative movement. So if you're not well versed into the whole Doctor Who thing, I can see people getting lost, maybe getting frustrated. So start from the beginning, man. Don't start from the Capaldi season because you'll just confuse yourself a little bit. There's things that you need to fully understand before you jump into that.
yeah,
Having said that, that episode was great because uh, we finally see the amount of anger in the Doctor himself and his willingness to cross that line, and that's what the Dalek pretty much gets him to do. He's willing to do this, and we had that discussion last week as to what the companion was doing. That's why the companion's there, because he's more than willing to cross the line and do what he feels logically he has to do to put an end to things.
yeah.
So if you're not grounded, I mean, you're just going to do these things. The world's going to be black and white. And so the Dalek brought that out in him, and I think he realized at the end of that episode just how far he's taking things and how much he's willing to take it that far.
And I saw a lot of that in the relationship between the companion and the Doctor in that episode. So how you were explaining that last week, I'm like, oh, okay, I get that. I understand that. I saw that. And that's really cool to me. And I guess I'm really looking forward to coming back and revisiting that episode so that I can understand it. And one other thing, I I have I've not seen an entire episode before this, but um, a couple of summers ago when my sister was getting married, she was putting together some crafts or some other things for her wedding. I can't remember exactly what it was, but we were all hanging out at my mom's place, and she was watching a Matt Smith episode with Weeping Angels on it. And all I
Nice.
remember was I sat there for like 10, 15 minutes with her and helped her with a couple things and just kept thinking, like, man, these Weeping Angels are super creepy. So, but the great thing about that Capaldi episode is it's one of the things that really propelled me into thinking this is something that I could get into. Even though I don't understand what's going on, it makes me want to understand more. So, with that in mind, going back to the beginning, I ended up discussing this with a lot of Doctor Who friends, and everyone has their own take on what their favorite episodes are. And I had several friends tell me, like, don't start from the beginning. I'll give you a list of episodes to start with, and then go back to the beginning, because otherwise you're gonna hate it. I had a couple of friends who were like, "You're gonna go back to the beginning, like thinking like 50 years ago," and I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. No, I'm not gonna. I'm not even gonna go back there. Like, I will. I will get caught up here, and then maybe I'll go back and catch up with some classic Tom Baker episodes and figure all of that out. And I know there's a lot that's missing as well. So we'll see how bad this bug bites me. But we're getting close. I'm going to start watching at the beginning of the month, and that is definite. That is the date. We're going to start this in April, but the the question remains of whether I should watch the first season or not. I have a lot of friends who have told me don't watch the Christopher Eccleston. I have even more, and those who I trust more with their taste say no, you definitely need to. I like Christopher Eccleston as an actor. I think he's interesting. I've seen him dressed as the Doctor, and he looks kind of leather clad punk. Like I don't know, like what's going on there, but it's at least interesting, and it's piqued my interest. Mark, what are your opinions?
You have to start with Eccleston. I don't care what anybody else has said. I don't understand why they would say to skip him. Honestly, it took me a while to get used to David Tennant because Christopher Eccleston makes that much of an impression on you. I know a lot of people love David Tennant, but I believe it's purely for the sole reason that he lasted, what, 4 or 5 seasons? So he was there longer. But Christopher Eccleston really brought back Doctor Who. Like I told you, I started Doctor Who when I was a kid. And when it came back, if it wasn't for the strength of his acting, it would never have held on to me. It would have just been a novelty, like, oh, it's back, like, oh, I'll watch a few episodes. But he really buys into the character and he sells it to you, and you'll see that. The first couple of episodes, yeah, they're kind of silly, but that was the heart of Doctor Who back in the day. They were kind of silly at times, so they brought that and they amped up the production value. But then there's a theme that started, and if you don't start with him, you're gonna miss the whole bad wolf thing. Like, what does it mean? Why did it start? If you skip his season, you're not gonna get that. You're gonna be lost once you get to David Tennant. So forget the Eccleston haters. Watch it from that point. I'm not gonna say to watch it from from the Phil Hartnell days, the first Doctor, because it's going to require a lot of time, and there is a lot of boring Doctor Who episodes because you have to keep in mind the way things worked back then. But definitely, definitely start with David Eccleston. You have to.
Yeah, and the three people who, like I said, people whose opinions I trust more. That was specifically you said this, Brian Swankmotron from Big Shiny Robot, and Tyson Arspot from Big Shiny Robot. All three of you said the exact same thing. Like, you've got to watch it. Oh, and Lee George Cade from The Geek Show. All were very, very. All of you were very definite. Like, you have to watch Eccleston. So I'm definitely going back. But it made me think about all of these other great shows that we love and think about in retrospect, where they had either kind of weak first seasons or controversial first seasons. And the first thing that I can think of is Seinfeld.
Yes. Very weak.
I mean, Seinfeld, first of all, was never meant to be watched in any sort of order. There's no through storyline, so it really doesn't matter what episode you start on. There's no reason to be a completist with that. But yeah, that first season, I'm glad it didn't get canceled. A show like that would not have stuck around.
Right.
These days. These days, it's like if you don't have a pretty decent first season, you're gone, unfortunately. But it's good that it was able to stick around, because otherwise we would have missed out on so many things. It feels like there's a lot of shows that it takes them at least the first half of their first season to figure out what it is they're trying to do and what they're trying to say, and then they come back with a really great, really classic, like, second or third season. Do you have any?
Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. started that way.
Yep.
Very slow start. I defended it, and then I started questioning my defending it, because I was like, okay, even I don't know where they're going with this anymore, and they're going to have to show me something real quick. And then they did, and boy, did they ever.
Yeah.
But it took a while. It took a while, and there was a lot of it that the pace was too slow. I didn't know where the story was going. I even had criticisms about the sound. There was just so much about it that I wasn't too sure about. But I'm glad that I stuck to it, because there is some good story making going on right now. With Doctor Who, though, shoot. See, the thing is, I approach it from a different vantage point because I was a fan as a kid. I knew what was coming to me more or less. So the first episode's kind of silly. The second one is kind of too, especially when you see the big baddie. Her name's Cassandra, and you're gonna laugh as to, she's she can't possibly be a baddie because you'll see what I'm talking about, but she is, and it's kind of silly. And then you have other elements that are kind of silly too. So I can see how some people can get turned off by it. Like, this is way too silly for me. But it never goes to Red Dwarf silliness. 'Cause that was bad.
I kind of like
And
some
I'm
of
not.
Red Dwarf silliness, but
Ooh. No.
well, some of it, not all of
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah. Well,
it's
who never gets that bad ever? But
yeah.
there is some of that, and if you can get yourself past that, then it gets really, really good.
One of the things one of my geek mentors, Kerry Jackson from Geek Show, who he is the literal geek godfather of my son Jackson, because I named Jackson partially
Oh,
after
nice.
Kerry. But Kerry said to always remember that Doctor Who is a kids show, and that then it all makes sense. Because otherwise, if you're watching it seriously as a grown-up show, it's not always going to be satisfying. But if you're like, oh, okay, it's a kid show, then it can be silly, and it can be lighter, and you don't have to worry as much about it.
I don't know if I agree with that. Um, I guess initially, when you first start watching it, yeah. And the first or the return season, which I don't know what in number, I don't know what season it is,
Yeah.
but I guess if we do the whole BC AD thing, I guess this would be year one AD or whatever. With Christopher Eccleston, I can see that. Yeah, you approach it as it's kind of silly kids show, but it progressively gets more adult, and that's where we're at now. Because the themes, the questions, the situations get a lot heavier, and there is more weight to them. It becomes a lot more adult. At its heart, at the Doctor's heart, he's still a child. And that's the thing about the Doctor. That's what makes him so lovable. He can be dead serious and he can take action, but at the center of his heart, he's still a child. He approaches things in a childlike manner. But I wouldn't necessarily say to view the show as a kids show, because there are some heavy, heavy elements later on. Maybe three seasons into it, it starts getting very, very heavy.
Well,
And once you bring in Torchwood, Torchwood's just like almost strictly adult.
yeah,
They
and
go a little darker.
and that was his point, is that Torchwood he liked Torchwood a lot more because it was an adult show, not a kid show, and so he could get into it. But let's go back to Agents of Shield. You mentioned you defended it, and then you questioned your defense of it, and then you were blown away. That was exactly how I felt. But I kept saying to myself, in Joss Whedon we trust. In
Right.
Joss we trust. We know that this is what happens. Almost, and I know this is a little bit of heresy for me to say, but pretty much every Joss Whedon show has a weak first season, and then it comes back with a spectacular second and third, or beyond episode or season, and it all works together. That's not to say the first season of Buffy is bad, but it's nowhere near as good as the second or third. That's not to say the first season of Dollhouse is bad, but once they did that final episode of the season where they go into the future, it's like, oh, this is a completely different show.
Right.
This is not at all what I expected. So I know that that's a little bit of heresy, but I think Whedon generally has bad first seasons where they're trying to get their footing, and then they come back and make something amazing.
I agree with Buffy. Don't agree on Dollhouse, because and we've spoken about this. I thought the first season of Dollhouse was very strong, very, very strong. Of course, the second season is better, but that by no means that the first season was weak because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed everything. Um, the whole thing with Olivia Williams as to who she was working for. You know, is this an underground site? Is this a company being controlled by the government? You know, there is that intrigue throughout the entire first season that gets a hold of you. Buffy, not so much at all.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'd have to disagree with. And plus, like I told you, Firefly was the one season, so that kind of
To
disqualifies.
to which I say, imagine what a season 2 of Firefly would have been.
And I counter with you have it with Serenity.
Yep. See, if we had had an entire second season that was all Serenity quality and stuff after that, I mean that would have been the most amazing show in the history of television.
Yeah,
And so I stand by it in terms of comparison, especially watching the Train Job. Like that
oh,
was
awesome, yeah.
no, the Train Job was not awesome.
Yes, it was.
No, and the pilot, those first 2 episodes, no,
What are you
no,
talking about?
nope, 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 nope,
Dude, really?
nope. Those were not great
I need to
episodes.
somehow reach over and just do that. Like, how
That's
dare you?
fine. That's fine. I understand. I understand. It's like
Have at
spitting on
you.
the geek Bible.
I
I
loved it.
know.
I was all over it. I mean, I loved it. Yeah, and I kind of keep wishing that we'd have a Star Trek situation where they have that one season and then blah, we're gonna forget about it. Then it's brought back a few years later, saying, okay, people are kind of asking for this. We'll give you a few seasons. Uh, I know it's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Maybe, who knows? But I kind of would love, after all these years, for the characters to come back on TV for 3 or 4 seasons. That would be so awesome. And they're all willing to do it because I follow them all on Twitter.
Well, and hey, we're getting a semi reunion show. Fillion and Wash Alan Tudyk are going to do this new show Con Men, which is essentially about Firefly. I mean, come on. It's in case you don't know, uh, Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk started a Kickstarter for a new show that they want to produce that's going to be a web series, and it's about 2 actors who were on a cult classic TV show, and one of them went on to have a much better career, and the other one is washed up and just washed up. Um,
Washed up.
and he's on
Wah,
the
wah.
and he's a leaf on the wind
The leaf on the wind.
of the convention circuit, and that's the only way he's making money. Which is not entirely true because Alan Tudyk has done a lot of other great, amazing work, especially in voiceover stuff. Um, but the it still stands, and it's about those two guys, the successful one, the not as successful one, and called Con Men, and probably going to be a lot about sci-fi and comic book conventions. So that'll be interesting. I'm excited that we'll get to see that.
I'm kind of disappointed that Wash hasn't had more opportunities because he's fantastic.
Ooh.
His comedic timing is perfect, and we've seen his acting chops. The guy can do it. Now,
Yeah.
I'd love to see him in 2 roles. As a Marvel villain, he would
Hmm.
be perfect, or a superhero. I don't care. Either one of them. Just get him involved in Marvel or DC. Hell, jeez. He could be one of the Green Lanterns for all I care. He just needs a role like that,
Oh
right?
my gosh, he would make a great Green Lantern. Like,
He would, wouldn't he?
um, he'd make a great like Guy Gardner
The Guy Gardner.
or
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Because
he'd
he's
be
a smart ass just like him. He can
yeah,
pull it off.
yeah.
Or people all over England would scream bloody murder, but I'd love to see him as the Doctor.
Oh, he'd be great.
The
And
man
we
has a great English accent when he employs it.
Yep, he does. He's an amazing actor. Like
He is.
every single thing that he's in, he's just and you never recognize him, especially in his voiceover work. When I'm like, oh yeah, he's the Grand Duke of Weaselton from
Weaselton.
in Frozen, and he's Alexander Cray in Big Hero 6. It's like you didn't know that was him. It's like he just does a great voice, and he's in a lot of ways he really reminds me of Mark Hamill in that his voice acting chops are so amazingly out there. They almost overshadow his regular acting abilities, but he's
The
also
man's done
great in live
Shakespeare,
action
man.
stuff. I
He's done
know.
Shakespeare. He's great. I mean, have you ever seen Night Still? I'm pretty sure you have. He's the only good thing about that movie. I
Yep.
hate that movie. Oh,
Yeah.
but
I
he's the
really
only
didn't.
good thing about it.
I agree. I agree. I really didn't like that movie, but I really liked him in it. I thought I thought what's his name, Heath Ledger, was okay, but I didn't really like it otherwise.
I didn't care for
Um,
anybody else in that movie.
yeah, but I loved Alan Tudyk. He was great. He's great in everything. Alan Tudyk for everything. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
so yeah, I'd love to. So you said Marvel villain or Marvel hero. If you could make him a Marvel villain,
Adam
where would
Warlock.
Adam Warlock?
He'd be perfect.
Oh, he would be
Let's start a
perfect.
petition right now. He needs to be Adam Warlock.
He'd be great, and he's exactly the kind of guy that Marvel Studios would cast in a role like Adam Warlock because they buy they hire inexpensive talent for a long a long series of movies, and they get paid progressively more. That's one of the reasons they wanted to dump Andrew Garfield. Was he was going to be if they were going to start taking over, he was going to be too expensive to have in these movies.
Well, aside
And
from the fact that he sucked as Peter Parker, I'm sorry. I know you got love for him, but jeez, he
no,
sucked.
of all of the problems with the Amazing Spider-Man movies, I think that Andrew Garfield wasn't one of the main ones. So
Well, he was
I,
a
I don't I
30-year-old,
don't hate
15-year-old
him. No, that's true. I didn't hate him. I didn't love him. So I don't really like wade in one way or the other. But from like a purely business standpoint, he was just never going to work in that Marvel model. Alan Tudyk absolutely would because they could get him for cheap, and as Adam Warlock, where he's gonna show up potentially in a lot of different places in the uh, galactic Marvel universe. He'd be great. And just oh, now you've blown my mind, and
Yeah,
that's
they
all
should
I want.
totally they should totally Paul Bettany him, use his voice in a couple of movies, and then just bring him in as a major character because Paul Bettany's going to be the Vision, right?
Yep.
So they
Yep.
used his voice as Jarvis. You know, we were kind of used to his voice or his timbre at least, and now
hmm
he's going to be a major character. Do that with Wash, man.
That would be great. That would be amazing, and he could really fill that role of Adam Warlock, and he'd fit in well in the Guardians of the Galaxy, and he'd be a guy who I would see standing up to Thanos. So that's I'd love to see that.
Or teaming up with him. There's that
Or
duplicitous nature of Adam Warlock, which I really enjoy.
yeah, that's certainly possible too. I mean, who knows what's going to happen with this Infinity War? We'll
I
have
can't wait.
two movies of that and a second Guardians of the Galaxy. So
I
lots of
cannot
chances.
wait, man. I mean, can you believe this, man? Like I was, how old was I? 13 years old, 12, 13 years old. When the Infinity Gauntlet came out, and never in my wildest dream did I think that I ever think this comic that just blew my mind. That's just everything to me is going to be made into a movie. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that was possible. And now we're this close to getting the Infinity Gauntlet on screen. I mean, how freaking awesome is that? That we're getting. What did we do to deserve this, man? Aside from possibly getting our ass kicked a lot or being made fun of all these years, maybe this is our final recompense for waiting it out. But you have no idea how happy that makes me, man. Just as happy as Star Wars coming back. It's crazy.
Yeah, and our kids are all getting it for free. So we had to suffer for our geekdom a
We
little
paved
bit,
we
and
paved the road.
back in
We were the wandering Jews, 40 years in the desert, preparing the
back
road for them.
back in my day, if you read an X-Men comic on the playground, you'd get your butt whooped. Back in my day, if you were into Doctor Who, you'd get shoved into a locker.
You'd get some missing teeth.
Yeah, so that's it's really great how the ascendance of geekdom. I'm very excited about that, and I hope that we can use our newfound uh,
Power.
influence, yeah,
Power.
our but power and influence responsibly, and
With great power
we
comes
don't
great responsibility.
exactly, and we as geeks should understand that more than anyone, which is why it always makes me so sad when I see people getting excluded for from geekdom, like people like, bro, do you even comic book, bro? Oh, you don't even know what you're talking about.
Right.
It's like there are podcasts I listen to. Uh, I'm gonna throw in one of the podcasts who I like to put the promo on for in our episodes is Hello Sweetie, and I love you girls from Hello Sweetie. And the thing that I love most about it is they don't always know, oh, this was in this issue and this was in this
Right.
issue, and they don't need to, and they're never concerned about being that kind of geek. They're never concerned about being that kind of nerd where I'm going to show you how much more of a fan I
I
am
can
than
out
you.
nerd you.
Yeah, they're just excited about the things that they love, and that unbridled enthusiasm, I want that. I want to cultivate that. And you know, if I'm talking with Brian Young from Swankmotron, from Big Shiny Robot and Full of Sith and other places, even if I make a mistake, he's rarely going to correct me on something like Star Wars. And if I do, he's not going to like hold it over my head. It's like
Right.
if I say that this thing about Star Wars, and he's like, oh, you meant this, and I'm like, oh, of course I did. Of course I just brain fart.
Have you seen the show Comic Book Man? Shows.
Yes.
Okay. I don't like it.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, thank God. Because they're, they're comic snobs, I
Yep.
think. And they come across that way. And it's all about, that show isn't about comics. That show's about how much all four of them know about comics. And they're so in your face about it. Now, here's the thing. I think what's happening now is that there's two groups of comic people, or even nerd, geeky people, right? There's the kind where, like, I associate with, where we were just different, and a bigger a population of people who weren't like us. We were different. There's very few of us, so we're open to others coming in, and like we want to share this stuff. We want to talk about this stuff. And then there's the group of comic geek nerd people who set up a system where I don't know if I'm explaining myself right. It's sort of, there's a stratification to their whole society, and it's those people that are seeing new people and they're like, oh no, this was ours first. We don't want you in it. You don't know enough to be in our circle. Whereas people like me are like, hey, just join us. You're gonna get your head blown off by what you're gonna see, what you're gonna read. You're gonna love this. Just hang with us. So I'm in that group, but I can totally see other people in the group where we were here first. This was ours. They're our toys. We don't want to share our toys. You don't get to play with our toys because you don't understand our toy. Some kind of crap like that. And it ticks me off. Why we're even here doing this, it's insane.
Yeah. The hallmark of geekdom for me always was before, we were kind of loners. We didn't have friends or people to share these things with. And now we do. Like that's all I want to do. And that's why I'm doing this podcast is people have over and over and over told me I should get into Doctor Who, and so I'm going to actually do it. And I had a really heartening experience this week on Twitter. The world of wading into issues of social justice and video games and censorship and so on and so forth can get really hairy, and everything that's happened in the past year with Gamergate and death threats and people being doxxed, and it just makes me so angry that this is what our fandom has come to. And I found a really great series of articles um, by Liana Kay, and I can't remember Liana's last name now, but she's at Red Liana K on Twitter, and she wrote a series of articles about why Gamergate almost made me quit writing about video games, and it was this great essay um, and a series of YouTube videos about how her critiques of Anita Sarkeesian and feminist frequency kind of caused the trolls from the social justice crowd to come out of the woodwork and attack her. And I'm like, whoa, that's not cool. Because, I always think, oh, the whole point of being a feminist, of being into social justice, is you want to protect other people's rights to freedom of expression. You want other people to be able to say whatever it is they want to. And so, I sent her a couple of really nice tweets. I didn't agree with everything that she had to say. I also don't agree with everything Anita Sarkeesian has to say. So that's fine. I mean, we live in a world we don't all have to agree with one another. But one of the things that Anita Sarkeesian said over the summer at an expo in Portland that I found really really inspirational was it's a radical idea that when women speak about their experiences in video games, that you should just listen to them and their experiences. And I'm like, yeah, that is kind of radical, isn't it? That's what we need to do. So because most people just want to shut it down. So if that's the tack I'm going to take when another person with a similar but somewhat dissenting viewpoint and a critical viewpoint speaks up, I also want to elevate and listen to that person. Uh, and by no means should I, as a white male, attempt to police feminism and tell feminism what it should be, and be the arbiter of that. But I do want to elevate people when I find them that are good, and I retweeted all these things. Had a lot of really nice conversations with several people when she retweeted them. I got no blowback from any of the social justice warrior crowd, from any of the Anita Sarkeesian people, and it's like, this is good. This is the way it should be. Person A says something, person B says something in response, person C says, hey, this is interesting, listen to all of this, and we can all just exist in this space. And I hope that's what we can do. And I think that all of these icons of goodness in our in our geek Bibles, people like Jean-Luc Picard or Steve Rogers or whomever would tolerate, the kind of pettiness and that we often have. So I'm glad that we had a great experience with this. So
That's cool. That's really
yep.
cool.
I'm gonna go ahead and close out the episode with that anecdote. Sorry, that was kind of long. Sorry, this was all kind of long. But thanks again, as always, to Mark for joining me. And hopefully soon we'll have some other guest panelists on to join. Probably as I start going through episodes, we'll have people who want to talk about their favorites. But special thanks to Big Shiny Robot, especially Thomas Winkley, for hosting our podcast website at whovirgin.com. You can connect with us there on Twitter at whovirgin or Tumblr as I get ready to live tweet my binge watching. This week I'll continue tweeting a few other things, some more powers, some more some more iZombie, and join us next week as we get ready to finally break into the binge, and we'll see you next time. And that's over.
Cool. I love the sign off, by the way.
All right. Sweet. Do you want to sign off? We can get you a sign off.
No, that's cool. No, but the what you put at the end with Ollie G and
Yeah,
Stewie and Animal House. It's
it's fun.
awesome.
I
Love
like
it.
it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for hanging with me. Thanks for rescheduling. I'll try and figure out sometime next week if we can do it closer to like noonish or something.
I'm
I
cool
don't
with
know
it.